Hello, everyone. Today we're going to talk about collaboration. So collaboration is a word that is very used today, but it also has very different meanings. For example, I talked to someone this morning. Does it mean we collaborated? Or we're assigned to the same project? So do we assume that we collaborate by default? So actually what really makes a difference in the collaboration are very different the moments in which we collaborate, the team dynamics, and the way we collaborate. And that's what actually gets the teams and the products and what we're building to the next level. And this is what we're going to talk about today. But before that, I have a question for you. How many of you have already paired with a designer? Can you raise your hands? Wow, okay. How many of you have paired with a PM this week? Thank you. And how many of you have been in a meeting or interaction with a stakeholder or a client lately? A lot of hands raised. Great. Okay, let's get going. So I'm Alexandra. I'm a product manager for ABC Plants. ABC Plants, it's a company that sells indoor and outdoor plants. And our business goals for this year are to increase customer satisfaction, and we want to do that by better matching the plants with the environments of our clients. Also to position ourselves as trustful partners with our brand, and to increase in-store revenues by better matching the needs of different types of customers. And when we think of different types of customers, we think of the degree of saviness, like how savvy our clients are they more like beginners or not in how to take care of their plants. So our value proposition is to help our clients pick the right plants, but also take care of them. And in the main key features, most of the times, actually what happens is that if you're in the store, you can scan the QR code of one of the plants, and that will give you information, very specific information about that plant, especially in two regards. The first one is the ideal environment, so basically what soil type, what kind of light, and so on. But also information about how you can take best care of these plants specifically, like watering schedule, how to cut, spray leaves, and so on. So as the product manager, I have tons of other ideas. These are the main features until now. So I have a whole list that I drafted and that I want to implement. So I'm going to talk to the designer, Jessica.
Hi.
Hello, Jessica.
Yeah.
Oh, I have all this list of features that are really cool. I'm sure everyone will enjoy. So I really need you to work on the designs and create really cool designs that we can put in production very fast, if possible.
Okay, awesome. So time for me to play the game with you. I have a lot of really cool ideas based on the business goals that you shared. Give me a couple weeks to figure some things out, do some design tests. I'll come back to you, right?
Okay, perfect.
Okay, 3 weeks later. Alex, what do you think?
Wow, this is great. Super complete, all the different features that I wanted, super nice design. We can go to development, right?
Yeah, let's do this.
So we're going to go to our engineer, Adriana.
Hello, I'm the engineer.
Hello, Adriana. So look what we have here, all these features. The design is already ready, so we need you to start developing it super fast.
Yeah, okay.
It's really cool, right? The stakeholders love it, the users love it.
Oh.
How do we get started in the next sprint?
Next sprint, like next week?
Let's do this.
Oh, you are serious? It's not a joke? No.
No.
Oh my God. Okay. I think, Alexandra, Jessica, we need to talk. Because what can possibly go wrong? Yeah. So, of course, we engineers, we don't have a clear alignment on business stakes or product vision. When we don't have the time to step back and know our users, and we are given, when a new feature is implemented, the solution and implement it fast. Well, when we don't know what the problem we need to solve, what impact it has on the product success, we cannot do things right. Yes, of course, we are going to do our best to have a clean architecture and keep a clean code. But the code reflects the product vision. And when we are not aligned, we will end up coupling or decoupling our parts of our system with a big effort, and usually for nothing. So why this happens? Because in most of the organizations, we think that we optimize delivery time by keeping all the engineering team focused on the development, and in the meantime, having the product and design for running all the discoveries and the solution framings for the next feature. Well, of course, one of the consequences of this is the lack of well-defined boundaries. So when we cannot step back and understand the problems, we don't know the users we are building the software for, it's difficult to do things right. And at the end, our code will just become a big ball of mud. Everybody knows, impossible to to get it right. Another consequence is that engineers don't understand how their work contributes to the success of the company. When we don't understand the whys, when we don't see how our work contributes to the product success, well, it will create frustrations and tensions. And finally, we will end up with a low motivation. I am an engineer, and my job is more than coding. So how many of you have already experienced this? Yes, that's great.
All right. So what we want to talk about today is cross-discipline collaboration. We believe it's the key to avoid the pitfalls that Adriana mentioned. It's the key to build products that have a higher chance for success, to have a team that is more motivated and more engaged because everybody understands why we're doing things, how we are going to do things as well. And it allows us to build better, more resilient and change-friendly models ultimately. We're going to walk you through what we believe are the top collaboration moments throughout the whole product development cycle. So we'll talk about the discovery phase, the framing phase, and as well the shipping phase. It's not a checklist. It's not a recipe book. It's moments that you have to pay attention because it can change and turn over the project entirely if done well. Before we get into it, the single most important moment is how you kick off the project, how you get things started. So the kickoff phase is about having everybody in the same room, right? The format doesn't matter. The format matters, right? But it can change depending on your context and on your project. But first, having everybody in the same room so that the information comes to the different people directly. You reduce the feedback loop by having all of the different parties and expertise into the room. So if you have your key stakeholders, architects, engineers, design, PMs in that kickoff room, you're already taking a step toward being set up for success. The kickoff format can vary. It can be 1 hour, 1 day, 1 week, if you do a lean inception, or depending on the format you need to use and the complexity of your project. The most important thing is that you walk out of that room with a clear agreement on the business goals, the product goals, and the technical goals as well, that you use it as a platform to share the current knowledge on the market, on the users, on the current states of the system, and that you also define together the success criteria of the project. It's also the right place to start identifying the risks, the dependencies, and the key constraints of the project, And these will be feeding the next steps. So let's talk about the next step. Usually, you would start your project by a problem discovery, right? So it's that moment where you want to own your problem space. You will need to understand what you want to understand who are your users, who are you serving, what are the top needs and problems you need to solve and the top needs you need to address. You will use it to investigate as well what is the current state of the systems, who wants what, and have a little idea on what could you change there or what could be in the scope of this project or not. And one of the key moments of collaboration between all the disciplines during the problem discovery is obviously user research. If you want to have a user-centered product, right? A product that have a higher chance to be useful to someone and to be desirable by someone and not build something that will be thrown away to the garbage or that nobody will end up using, you would usually start with user research and try to figure out what your user needs. So we want to build an app to help people select the right plans when they are in the store, to figure out what is the right one for them and to help them take care of the plans so they are more satisfied with their purchase. And there's a higher chance that they come back to our stores and buy again next time. So I really believe that one of our learning objectives with this discovery should be that we need to understand the client decision-making process, right? And we need to understand the top blockers, what prevents them from really picking the plan confidently or discourage them. I think those are the top key things we should learn. Do you have any other ideas on our objectives?
Yeah, completely agree with this. I think I would add one around understanding better how our customers take care of their plans already and what are their struggles linked to taking care of the plans. Well,
Okay.
What do you think?
Makes sense. Yeah, given what we said in the kickoff.
Yeah, I
Adriana?
fully agree with it. Yeah.
Okay, let's go for it then. So it's time to figure out who we'll be interviewing and what questions we will ask. Okay, so one of our objectives is to learn what's their decision-making process, right? So let's ask questions such as, tell me about the last time that you purchased a plant. Where did you go? Why did you pick that plant and not another one? Did you get advice? How did you get advice? To whom? On what platform? And ultimately, are you happy with the choice that you made? How is the plant doing? Is it still alive? Bunch of questions. Of course, you need to prioritize, right? Depending on your learning objectives. Figure out what are the top priority questions. Figure out a way to unbias as well, the way you will ask those questions. And it's really powerful that everybody gets the chance to brainstorm together on these interview questions. You have questions, you have objective goals, time to actually do the thing and talk to the user. So sit down with the people you need to interview and observe what they do, observe the vocabulary they use during the interview as well. It's the customer language. And generate the insights that you will need to take the right product direction.
Because of course, can I join? Yes, cool, because I really need to notice the vocabulary they use for later. Thank you.
It's a great idea, and you're always welcome. I can always use a note taker. If you want to have fun and lead one of them at some point, go for it. So really excited that you're joining. All right. So at this point, we've done a bunch of interviews. We have a bunch of insights. Fantastic. What do we do with them? It starts with analyzing the results, synthesizing them. Okay, what did we learn? We learned that the top blockers for people to buy a plant and what discouraged them, or that they wonder if the plant will survive in their house. Is it the right plant for the level of light they have in their house or their garden? They wonder, and we're learning that it's really a point of wonder that is important if it's toxic for their pets or child. And usually they would lack information about the plant. Oh, that plant looks really cool, but I have no idea if I can actually take care of it or if it's going to die within 1 week. And there's a lot of different insights that you would usually generate, and you will work with your product analytics team as well to even gather more insights. So if you can brainstorm together, have people joining interviews, I think it does wonders for the motivation and the engagement of the team, right? But at the very least, the most important part of user research is to make sure that you share within the team and with your key stakeholders those learnings, because they will shape the product decision you're making, right? They will help you identify what is the top problem you need to solve, what sort of feature you need to prioritize, and how can you have an impact that is aligned on your business strategy and business goals and will serve your users. Another key thing that should happen during the discovery phase is to create some artifacts, to create some outputs that will be the tools that your whole team can refer to throughout the project. So one of the famous one is the persona, right? In our case, we are learning that we have two different key type of users. We have Joan, who's the casual plant owner. She lives with roommates. She needs to figure out whose time it is to water the plant. And she feels a lot less confident about what she's supposed to do with the plant. And on the other spectrum, we have Liam, the plant addict. He has already so many of it. He has a much higher budget. And having this persona will help us throughout the project say, okay, now this feature, we're prioritizing it for John because we want John to become a Liam. And that feature is maybe for the power user. So let's think about Liam in this context. What do we need for him? It's not the only artifacts that you would be creating. You can have customer journeys. You can have a service blueprint. You would have a lot of different sort of diagrams about how your current systems are working, right? This is the very beginning of sharing and building a shared understanding among your team.
Another key collaboration moment is the stakeholder interviews. So first of all, who are the stakeholders? Well, stakeholders will be people from the company, from very, very different departments that can actually give you that level of understanding of the business, of the user, of the different dynamics, and at the domain as well in the end. So in our case, we'll be talking to gardeners, to a manager or store employees, but also to other people from other departments like marketing or customer support. And we're going to really aim for two main goals. Like the first one is to understand how our business works. So in this case, could be understanding better the pricing, the loyalty programs, the service that we offer in store and after the purchase as well. But also a goal around building up a common shared understanding between the engineering, product, design, but also our different stakeholders. So before we get into the interview, usually we have a bunch of steps. So the first one is really like an individual preparation. Here, the idea is to get ourselves to acquire the basic understanding of the domain. So you can do this by multiple means. You can check things online, reference books. You can look at a website, go on-site to check the infrastructure on the services. But something that works really, really well here is to really go and, let's say, live the life of someone in store. For example, in our case, we could go and really stay with the store manager or with the persons that are like selling in the stores and really either shadow or take their role in advising clients, seeing what questions they ask and seeing all their process of purchasing a plant, or even if they already purchased the plant, they come back and ask us some questions. So this will already give us that first understanding and will also, of course, help us in the stakeholder interviews and understand better what they say to us because we don't start completely from scratch. Also, we're going to create the interview guide. Here, as for the user interviews, very important to do it together as well. And I would say maybe even more because the stakeholder interviews are going to be run by all of us actually, or by any of us, because we all need together that understanding for the domain. So we're going to brainstorm the interview questions together, and then depending on the stakeholder, of course, the questions will be a bit different. Like for example, for the plant gardeners could be, what are the key factors that plants need in order to thrive and be healthy? What does it mean, a soil type? How many types of soils we have? What do we need to take into consideration when watering plants and so on? And then for other departments like marketing, we could ask things like, okay, what happens when a customer purchases a plant? And actually, the process is very iterative. Like one question will kind of lead to another. For example, for marketing, whenever we say, okay, like what happens when someone purchases a plant, marketing would say, well, actually, the loyalty program starts. And then we would be like, oh, can you tell me more about the loyalty program? How does it work? And they would be like, well, they start gaining points. And then we can dig deeper into this by like, okay, how many points? How do we get granted the points? What is the rule that would make us actually be able, like the clients to be able to use these points, and so on and so forth. So it really goes like from iteratively from one question to the other. So when we run the interviews, again, like very important to run the interviews together. And also to follow a few rules. In some cases, it's pretty similar to what we do with the users as well, like really asking very open questions, trying to bias the things as less as possible, and really asking questions. Basically, we're going to ask questions about how things work. We need to be very concrete and then dig deeper and deeper into it. And what's really important is to really take note of the exact words they are using. Note these words, and if whenever you ask questions you are using different words, make sure that you correct yours and you really take their words, because this is what is going to create the ubiquitous language for us afterwards, and we need to really understand in the exact context what's the word that they're using and what does it mean. And of course, not introduce our own wording, as I was saying. So what happens next? Well, what's important to note as well is that this is a very iterative process. You won't have like an exhaustive list of all the questions that you need to ask from the very beginning. So you're going to try to have, as for like most things in product development, short iterations. We're going to have short feedback loops. So we get some initial understanding of from the stakeholders. Then we start coding, and we intercalate the coding sessions with extra stakeholder conversations. Because as we're going to start coding, we're going to get some extra questions as well, and extra aspects in which we would like to learn more. Of course, we will also pair together. Like, for example, really important to pair between engineering and design and make sure that we have this common understanding between what's starting to happening in the code, but also the business stakes. And of course, really sharing this information with everyone so that everyone is well aware of everything that we've learned and how things work.
So another collaboration moment is the event storming. So event storming is a collaborative way of exploration of the underlying domain. The most popular format, I think, is the big picture workshop. And it takes place at project kickoff and may span over multiple days. It will depend on the complexity of the domain and also of the level of the granularity we want to achieve. The main idea is to bring everyone in the same room, like all the stakeholders, our ABC plant gardeners, the marketing people, the customer support, the store employees and their managers, but also as engineers, product and design. So today we are not going to talk about how to run it, but we will have like a glimpse of the dynamic and see why it is beneficial to include in a conversation both designers and product. Because as for the stakeholders interviews, we should lead and host them together. So the setup is quite simple. We should have a huge whiteboard and a lot of colored post-its, each color representing a unique event storming concept. And remember that our goal is to explore and understand how ABC Plants organizations perceives its domain of expertise and activity. And for that, we will ask all the people to start putting on the board, using the orange post-it, all the things that has happened in the domain and are relevant to them, and ask them to order by timeline. And conversations will start once everybody put everything they are aware of on the board. And like people will start to get together. We start to match all the events talking about the same thing. We can start asking them questions, like, for example, if the marketing didn't put anything yet, we will ask them what happens when a plant is purchased. And they will say, oh, but the loyalty card will be credited. So those conversations will bring more events on the board. But when we group the events, we will notice that some are addressing the same thing. But we should, it's like a warning, we should now take the time to explicit all the synonyms because they may hide different concerns, and usually they did. So at this moment, you need to take the time and for each term, give its exact meaning in this conversation context. Because we need to build our shared language that we will use in our code and also all along the lifetime of the project in our collaboration and conversations between the stakeholders, engineers, product, and design. But now that most of the events are there, we will ask them to put and identify on the board what are the parts of the system with key requirements, or the parts where they identified risks, or they don't know really how things work anymore because the people left the company. The parts where they still have questions. And this is important for products because they highlight some of these spots may highlight important business rules.
Yeah, for example, for me as a product person, like when the fact that I joined this really taught me different things. For example, in the business rules, like I found out about the plants that can be poisonous for cats, dogs, or even like not recommended for people that have kids. So in this case, like I already know that at a point in our features or in our product, we will need to make sure that we don't recommend these plants to these people.
Exactly, and also they may highlight opportunities for future developments, like the loyalty card event, where someone put that, oh, the user may lose all his points when he will lose his material card. Of course, so this is an opportunity for the future to add like a virtual loyalty card. And also, it's important for PMs to say, to know where to run risk mitigations. So because they will trigger product decisions, those spots are attention spots for product. Now, why the designers? So our product will display information to our customer, and based on it, he will do some actions and he will make some decisions. So for example, when a plan care is generated by our system, we will display the care plan information to him, and he may decide to read it. So this is important because these are spots where user interaction happened, and then where we display information.
And it's great for me as a designer to be part of it, so that I can also participate and understand what's the current way this service is working globally. What do the stakeholders think we should be doing, right? I can understand the current state and then plan for the solutioning phase and the framing phase according to what came out of the event storming workshop.
And of course, at the end of our of this step, like at the end of the day, we will come to see and name some business flows. In our case, the plan care flow and the loyalty card flow. And at this point, like PMs can use the learnings of the user research on the personas and see what are the flows they should address with higher priority. For example, our users are not experienced gardeners, so they really want to have a care plan. And so the choice is simple. This is what we are going to do first, and just live for the moment with the material loyalty card. And as Jessica said, the designers see how the flows are working now. But our role is to improve the product. So we will challenge them using the learnings from the discoveries and the solution framing. And also, as engineers, of course, we will see the bounded context emerging and specific purposes. That means for us, independent domain models. And as next step, what are we going to do? We will select one, so a smaller perimeter, one unique workflow, and we will start regrouping the events by responsibility. So in this way, the core concepts, the aggregates, will emerge. And it is time to ask more questions, to do more renaming if necessary, because it is the time to capture all the business rules and that are associated here with the aggregate and capture them here locally. So at the end of the workshop, we build an amazing stuff. We have a shared knowledge between our stakeholders as engineers, product managers, and designers. Because when we work on a product, on a project, and we have the curiosity and the appetite to go and explore the domain, to understand it, it will be some point when we, on this perimeter, will have almost the same expertise of our stakeholders. And of course, this is important because, of course, we will have our say.
Trying not to drop his stuff. It's the most tension point of the presentation. Okay. So at this point, we need to focus on what will actually be the product. What will it look like? How will it work? Enters the solution framing phase. Among all of the different ways you could solve the problem at hand, right? You could achieve the business objective you set for your team. What is the way that have the most chance for success? And that's what you're trying to determine and test during that framing phase. One of the key tools, usually what would happen is the designer work on some solution, on some mock-ups, and then he has some feedback round with the PMs, with the stakeholders, with the engineers on the feasibility. This takes a bunch of time. A better way to do this is to have a collaborative solutioning session from the start and to pull the engineers early on into the conversation. So, why? Because by having everyone around the table, when you start generating idea of what the UX will be, first of all, you have more diverse ideas because you have diverse expertise around the table, right? That leaves more room for innovation. It will also generate more buy-in within the team, and you'll have one stronger voice and one same story about why you think that's the most likely or the best approach, right? When you talk to other stakeholders. And also what will happen is that we will disagree on things. You will have people that are challenging each other approach, and you will usually walk out of the room with like, we're not sure, it might be approach A or approach B. Pay attention, because that's what you will have to test next. Okay, the last reason why everybody should be in the room is that because you're drawing, because you're sketching and you're making it tangible, it will help you get away from some more abstract conversation. And you remember the diagram where everybody sees on the wall that, oh, it's actually a triangle, a round, and a square, a circle and a square, right? That is what's happening when you actually start sketching the interface. Like, oh, that's what we want to put in the hand of the end users. Okay, let me rethink about it entirely. So we had a session, we argued, it was really heated. People brought a crazy idea about kittens and unicorns in the app. where we landed in the session is that we're going to have some new tags that are going to be attached in the store to the plant, right? And what we're trying to figure out is like, how might we help people pick the right plant for them and be happy with their purchase? So we're having a QR code on a tag inside the store attached to the plant. And when people scan it, it will take you to the Play Store. You can download the app that we are building. And then you will have more information about the plant, the name, and then what sort of care does the plant need. And if you're not so sure, we're taking you to a questionnaire that will allow you to give you a budget, how much light is there in your house, do you have pets, all the different criterias. And that will give you at the end a list of different plants that could be a really good match for you, as well as links to how to actually take care of it and maybe some more fancy features around it. Okay, that's what we have. Usually during this conversation, what would happen by having the different expertise around the table is that maybe you have in mind a very fancy recommendation algorithm, right? You want something that takes into account 12 different criterias and that match it with the 1,000 of references you have in your store. And during that discussion, maybe Adriana, you will be telling me, that's going to take a while, that's going to be costly, that's going to be a big effort, even just building the database, right? And Alex will probably tell, hey, we learned during the discovery that the top 50 bestseller actually is like, represent a really large volume of the sales, so we could start with them, prove the concept with those 50 references, and that decreases radically the effort that we have to invest into launching a first version of the app. And as a designer, I will adapt the user experience accordingly. So, time to build this. Okay, wait. First, remember that we probably had a lot of heated debate about whether that's a good idea or not. So, enter the solution testing. Or even if you all agree that's the right solution, probably a good idea. We all have assumptions when we are creating a product, when we are designing a product. And that's what we need to test as soon as possible, obviously, with a short feedback loop that is as short as possible. The assumption can be high level, like clients would enjoy getting information autonomously in the store about the app. And they can be very specific. Like we believe that the users will actually notice the button and want to click on it. You could test so many things. If you're not structured and if you're not clear on what you are trying to learn, it's the same then for the discovery interviews. You will not get the best out of these testing rounds, and you will not be making the best use of that energy and budget. So what did we learn? We learned that, yeah, the clients are willing to get information more autonomously, but specifically the younger audience and probably the more senior folks that do like to interact with the staff in store are not part of our targets. And then we had a debate about whether the clients would be willing to download the app or not early on in the process. And that test taught us that 85% of people actually would not feel comfortable or feel very surprised about having to download an app right away. So we're going to have to change our approach and have something web-based that is have less friction to use in the first place. And maybe if we need to move it to an app later on, when we convince them of the value it would provide, then that's the better approach.
So, in most of the organizations, the development phase is where the collaboration between us engineers, product and designers starts. But what can we do to avoid this? What can you do? What can we do to keep our conversations going on, to avoid that product and design give us the work to do and then come back when it is finished? And how can we use the learnings of the early stage collaborations to build a better product, a better model, and a better code? So I personally love the weekly points my PM is hosting. it is the time for us to align, to discuss what are the stories and the subjects to focus on the week, to share what are the current experiments result, our product adoption. But also is the time to see and organize our collaboration. For example, what are the ongoing user interviews? What are the future user interviews? Who are going to join them? What are the code-sketching sessions? Who are going to join them? Also, there will be stories in the pipe that need slicing and that need discussion together. So you may wonder, no, we didn't function like this from day one. Because every person has a different way of work. So some of them were never interested to work like this. Others never experienced this. But we have some persons who are ready to give their time and participate to discoveries and solution framings and pair with designers and PM. And what can I say? You should start with volunteers and start on something that has relatively low stakes and just collaborate and adapt, but with the respect with everybody's way of work. And at the end, the results will be here because most of the team will be involved. And this way of working, this way of collaborating, it will be the normal now. It will be like this. And finally, I just want to share a story because the week before I came here, because we collaborating, because we have the early stage collaboration and we work together as a team before the coding. We just developed it in 2 days and shipped in production, and now it's A/B testing, and we have a lot of feedback from our users, and so it's great.
So as a product manager, I will be writing the user stories. So Adriana, I have the backlog ready for next week. And the first story is really to generate the care plan based on all the top sellers.
Okay, let me ask you, is the care plan will contain every information like watering schedule, of course, but it will contain also the soil type or the sun exposure?
Yes, but actually there are multiple things that we need to put in the care plan. So I was thinking about all of these, but well, what do you think? Is it too big?
Yeah, I think it's too big. And, sun exposure and soil type is kind of customer environment stuff related. Maybe we can do it in the next iteration and start really small now,
Okay, then I'll slice this one for now, and then we can iterate in the next sprint as well.
Well, that's great. So when it's about story, user story rating and slicing, just go and pair with your PM. And don't forget that one feature means multiple small independent stories. And of course, why it's important that everybody is there, because for us engineers, it is the time that we can challenge the reasons that motivate the feature. The designers can adapt their model to fit the current iteration and don't get big stuff to do and make assumptions. And also, our PM has an instant feedback of the technical feasibility and complexity. So pair together. Also, so the user research introduced us with the customer language. The customer language and model should be simple, should be inclusive, it should be stable and clear. Why? Because it is used to run experiments like A/B testing on a broader audience. And of course, the users need to engage with our product. On the other hand, the server languages are complex and rich, and they are constantly evolving along the user stories and our understanding of the domain. So when you implement front ends, don't bring the complexity on this side. Because, of course, I don't think here everybody wants to make the user understand and practice DDD, right? So, of course, now we know that DDD doesn't mean just go in a room and design it, the application for 3 months, and after start to code. No, it's on the contrary, it's completely different. We start small and design and code along with the flow of user stories. And for example, in our case, when the coding starts on our first story, the domain model will contain exactly the behavior that was expected. We will generate the care plan for the top sellers. And the read model will contain only small information, like the watering schedule, the default one. And the designers, their model, it's adapted accordingly. So it is easy to say that when we finish coding, we deliver and our story is accepted. Like it will not be back and forth between us. So what is important is that each time to do what is enough at this moment and now. Of course, conversation should happen more than once. But how can we know when we need to have them? So I think that DDD and TDD work good together, very well together. And this is valuable for accepting TDD and also BDD. Why? Because TDD will show you where your design is wrong, but it will not tell you what you should do to fix it. And DDD may help. For example, if it's difficult to understand a test or it's difficult to write it, maybe it's because you have too much responsibility in one place, or on the contrary, the responsibility is not well localized. Also, if you write a test and you cannot cover all the use cases without ambiguity, this may tell you that your concept is incomplete. So you can use all this feedback that TDD gives you and for the next conversations with the stakeholders or the product. And of course, if you have a question and it's a product decision, go have a conversation, go to pair with your PM. And the same applies to design. If you have a question and it is a design decision, have a conversation with your designer. Go and pair with it. Just don't make assumptions. And use your friend, adopt DDD.
So we've been talking about how collaboration happens, but there are also some design tips.
Speaking of pairing between design and engineers, so please don't take any of this personally, right? That situation that might look familiar to you is as much the fault of the designer than the engineer. Okay, all right. I wanted to touch on this, right? Because that's something that is overlooked in every company that I worked on and with every team. It's really important for the designer and the engineer to spend time pairing together during the implementation phase. Even with a really strong design system in place and with the best people on the job, it's 100% guaranteed that there will be discrepancy between the design files and what is being implemented. So important to sit down, spot the discrepancy, decide what to do with it. Maybe there's last-minute trade-off and decision that needs to be made on the UI and the design, right? It has to be just a conscious choice and having that conversation and spotting, is it something that was overlooked or something that is not doable within the time frame that we have, and decide what we want to do.
So there are a lot of opportunities to collaborate also during delivery, as we've been seeing. But what's also interesting to note is that the fact that we've collaborated since the beginning in different moments, this actually will make the delivery more effective as well. First of all, because the why is very clear for everyone. Everyone knows what are the business stakes, what is the impact that we're looking for. So we know what we're trying to achieve. So also as a product manager, whenever I bring in a new feature or we bring in a new design, there will be very few questions actually about like why are we actually doing this, because everyone already knows. Also, the fact that we have shared knowledge all along creates way more effectiveness through the way. For example, I still see a lot of teams that sometimes we need to change something in the code or we have a bug and people keep passing a lot. Oh, it's not me, I don't have the knowledge, it should be someone else. And this creates so much waste of time and frustration. And as a PM, I'm just chase everyone to be like, who can actually solve this? If you've collaborated beforehand, like the knowledge is already shared, but also the ownership is way more shared. So this will be more effective. And also something else that happens is that we will continue to work like this. So basically the PM can circle back on the impact, so we can all know, okay, we wanted to achieve this for the users, for the business, we've done it, or no, we need to iterate in order to really get to that impact. So we will keep sharing learnings and impact, and this will give for once a clear view on where we're going, but also more motivation for everyone to see that we're actually achieving something really cool as a team. So we're getting to the end of our presentation, and we want to leave you with the message of the fact that actually early and often collaboration really does wonders. But it's also part science, part art, because it's really hard to strike a balance between a democratic chaos and siloed work. And a lot of teams will kind of go for divide and conquer, and each of us does their thing, and then we're going to meet somewhere along the way. But this actually creates a lot of, work that will not be super effective, a lot of conversations, a lot of frustrations, and in the end, also a suboptimal user experience. So, as in everything, start small. And remember that it's a journey, so that there are some things you can do, some things you can't, some things you can do right away. I saw at the beginning that you already do quite a lot of collaboration with all the hands you raised at the beginning. But what we invite you is to take one thing that you've seen in the presentation, take a note, and on Monday, go and use it with your teams. Thank you very much.